Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. I am back with Judith Glaser in probably the most important conversation you can have, because her book is called Conversational Intelligence, and it's how great leaders build trust and get extraordinary results. Conversation in general, what the world is made of. Exchange of dialogue.
How we connect with other human beings.
It's the most essential part of our humanity is how we speak to each other.
That's right.
And you've sort of dissected how we can make that better here.
Exactly right.
And in our last show, you mentioned the three types of conversations. The first level was the
transactional,
where it's just hello, hi, I'm there, you're here.
and we're checking to confirm what we know.
Right.
Because when we know what they know, then we are like that person, and our brain loves that. It makes it's a very juicy chemistry when I start to be like you and feel like we have a lot of connection.
Isn't it, though, possible to meet everyone and find a part of them that's like us?
Yes. However,
Yes.
when we find things that aren't like us, so that's why it's so important that we're looking at diversity in the world right now,
Right.
and helping bring people together, because we react to what that's not like us before we react to what's like us. If there's a lot more that's different.
So if somebody's not like us,
Yep.
how do you overcome and have a conversation so we can connect?
If they're not like us, there are apprehensions. Now, as we get older, we learn how to deal with our apprehensions.
Right.
When you're younger, kids can run away from each other. They don't want to play. I mean, there are all sorts of things we do. When we don't invite kids home to our.
Of course, people have wars.
We have wars because of being different. Absolutely.
Right,
So we're not talking about the extreme cases right now. But let's say we're in business and we want to get to know each other. Then, if it's a smart leader who's in that business, they're going to say, let's do activities where we get to know each other. I mean, those are called conversational rituals. Conversational rituals. Yes, so I'm an organizational anthropologist.
Right.
And what I did is I went back in time and I started to study how people formed community 6,000 years ago. And in the beginning, let's say you were in the caves and you were going to take a child who was 13 and help them become a man. The ritual to do that would be to go through the cave, look at all the pictures and paintings with your fire. You would walk through. The adult would describe the community and what it was all about. By the time the young boy got to the other side, then he now became an adult. And literally his brain knew to become an adult. I mean, it's a really fascinating thing. Rituals activate higher levels in the brain.
Rituals change our brain.
Yes, they do. They do.
Our brain, when you say our brain changes, it means our perceptions of reality get altered because of a ritual?
Yes, let me give you a story.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
So first let me start with the story about my son. My son was bar mitzvahed when he was 13, and we had 250 people in the room, and I wrote a story about him. And in the story I talked about how Jacob had 1 foot in childhood and 1 foot in adulthood. What I was doing was replicating the old ancient ritual of a man growing up.
Right.
Because that's part of what happens, 1 foot here, 1 foot here. And metaphors help us grow, by the way. So I used the metaphor of 1 foot and 1 foot.
Were you saying this out loud to him, or just?
I was saying it to the audience.
You were? Oh, you.
This was my story to the whole audience.
I wish someone would have done that at my bar mitzvah. I felt so lost. Who are these people? Why are they saying? And I felt so disconnected at my bar mitzvah.
Exactly. And this is a time to be connected, to
wasn't,
God and to Judaism and so forth.
Right.
So I took this time to do a ritual, and the ritual was that when Jacob was younger, he used to get in trouble, and I told stories about how he got in trouble, and he stole street signs with his friends, and we got a call at 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the police station, those kind of stories.
Right.
And yet, I said, and now Jacob is stepping into adulthood. And I described what adulthood is, and I said, there are parts of Jacob that sometimes his wisdom blows me away. I can't get enough of it, because at young ages he thought about things deep, about fairness and about trust, and he would give wisdom to me. And so I said, so now that Jacob is becoming an adult, he's going to put 2 feet into his adulthood. So I finished a very nice story at the end, and 2 weeks later, I got a call from his teacher. Now, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh my God, what did Jacob do now? Right?
Okay.
And she said, I want to tell you something. I saw Jacob in the last 2 weeks put both feet into adulthood.
Wow, she said that.
She said that to me. She was at the right.
What was his action? Why? How
he stopped doing the things that where he got into trouble. It was as I described the part of him. We all have parts of us that are the aspirational parts that we grow towards, right?
Right.
As I described that part, Jacob saw that was the future that he wanted to become.
And a ritual like a bar mitzvah, or
right.
some kind of, more, because that's become something else.
Yes.
But a ritual that affirms our act of transformation.
Correct.
Embeds that in who we are.
Correct.
And gives us permission to be different.
That's correct. And it gives us, it validates that that's enough of who we are, that we can trust, that we can bring that part of us out every day.
I
Because,
see.
in other words, the young part wants to come out. It's the
Because the
malicious-
community, though, is actually affirming.
It's
that's-
affirming that adulthood as well until we get reinforced. And the brain gets a lot of these rewards, which we know now are dopamine and oxytocin and all these great things when community gets together, and that reinforces certain behaviors.
That's why I think marriage is a very nice ritual if you choose to have that.
It's a
because-
wonderful ritual.
And because it does get an affirmation from the community, or any ritual that people do as a rites of passage,
exactly.
yes, will change them. I think that's interesting.
And so we've been, as an organizational anthropologist,
Right.
I've been studying different types of rituals. So let me take you into the story of how I started all of this, because I
Yes.
think this was...
And then we'll cover the other two types of conversation.
Okay, great.
But
Okay.
tell me how you got started, because...
So I started writing this book when I was 14 and a half.
Okay.
Now, I've written other books. This is my 7th book.
Okay.
I was trying to write this book as much as I could, but I couldn't write it because I'd had a mixture of neuroscience and psychology and anthropology, and people weren't ready for all of that in a leadership book. Now they very much are. But what I learned was that my father, at the age of 14, I learned that my father was a stutterer. Now, I didn't know him as a stutterer, but at a young child he was. It turns out that he was a twin, born a twin, and his sister, so he had a sister who was not very healthy. She had water on the brain. My grandmother only wanted girls. She didn't want a boy. And so my father became the object, not a real child with a personality. His sister, in the meantime, had water on the brain, and his job was to push the carriage. My grandmother had a big carriage made, and she lived until she was 5 and a half, and then she passed away.
The sister.
His
the
sister
twin
did.
sister. Okay.
So my father developed stuttering at a very young age.
Why?
because
What did that situation? How did that affect his physiology and brain?
when we're rejected, or when we're thought of and we're minimized by people around us, so whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a spouse, it affects our identity, and it affects us in many, many ways. It can actually change, it can actually become a harvesting place for disease in our body.
But in stuttering, it's a very hard of conversation, because conversation is a flow. If you're stuttering, you're not going to have.
So he's not connecting. So
not-
he was not connecting
he
with people
wasn't-
externally.
Right,
Right, in school, for example.
But the rejection caused a part of him
Emotional part of him.
to not be able to communicate because it went internal. I'm just
He
trying to understand.
distrusted himself.
Oh.
That's where trust really plays, and that's why the book has trust in it, because when we distrust ourselves, it causes us to change our identity. Literally, we can't find the voice to speak, and he couldn't talk. I remember him describing
Because
what it
he
was like.
didn't have any sense of himself.
Self-esteem and self-identity.
Oh, I see. So then, yes, the rest of the story is yes.
But then I found out I knew him as a non-stutterer.
Right,
So I
so
said to him,
what?
"What happened? Right?
Yes.
How did that happen?" And he said, "I had a teacher when I was in high school who believed in me." And this is a little bit like the King's Speech. And she said, "I want to make you the star in the play." And he said, "But I can't talk." And she said, "No, I'm going to help you do this." And she did. And how did she do it was what caused me to say, I've got to study conversations. What happened in that conversation that transformed my father so much that he was able to step into a belief that he could be a normal human being again
Yes.
and go from stuttering into speaking? Well, it turned out that it was her way of coaching him. Now, I am both a consultant and a coach. And so I wanted to learn how conversations can transform our identity to the extent that
Well,
my
what
dad-
did she do to coach him that made him?
And this is what's so fascinating.
Okay.
To be in a play, he had a new identity, whatever that role was.
Right.
It turns out now that in our brain, we can create new identities. Now, I'm not talking about a person who intentionally makes 50 identities.
No, you're talking about looking at ourselves in a different way.
In a different way. Exactly,
Yes,
Alan,
yes,
exactly.
yes.
And so when he was in that role, he discovered that he could speak without stuttering.
Wow.
So
'Cause he identified with
another identity in
Incredible,
him.
yes.
She brought out the aspiration, and she brought out the capability, and she linked the two together, and she gave him tools for practicing it. So my dad went on to become the valedictorian of his class in college, the head of the debating team, and the head of the theater team. That's 3 things where he was constantly on stage talking.
So that one incident changed his life?
Yes.
Completely?
Completely.
So when he was not in the play, he didn't go back to the old personality or the old way.
Correct,
And
correct.
how was he able to do that?
Because he made an identity for himself. Once he learned that he could live in the identity of an actor, then he started to shape an identity. And he said, what is it that I want to be? Well, I want to be able to be a valedictorian. So he then started to practice being that in a new identity in his mind. He said, I want to see myself being able to speak.
So how did that
Influence everything I do.
Yes, your book.
Because what I found is that people are attached to certain identities, but those identities can be made by being labeled. So if a parent may not like a child very much and says, you're selfish, you're stupid, whatever those labels are, that's an identity that you're given. And what happens if we have people, we fall in love with someone, and they love us, and they love us for who we are, and they share with each other how much we love of each other.
Right.
That's the beginning of creating a new identity. We can do it with friendships. We can do it with all sorts of things.
So that actually gets us to the third level of a conversation where we're empowering each other to be creating, unfolding into new realities.
And into new realities. Hence
Hence the show.
The show, right. What was fascinating, however, with my dad, and this is why even more I was impacted by this story, is that my dad, once he learned how to talk, he became a teller. So level 1, which is the first level of the story of conversational intelligence, is doing telling and asking.
Okay.
And if they're done in a healthy way, I tell and I ask, then they're balanced and I'm getting to know you.
Right.
I'm confirming what I know, because that's a part of what level 1 does.
I'm not shocking you with anything strange
No,
just off
it's
the
not-
bat until
right.
I get to level 3.
Level get 3, exactly, right.
Okay, so yes, that's level 1.
That's level 1. When what my dad did is he got hooked in or caught in the telling side of level 1. And so I grew up in a family where nobody had conversations.
Oh, you mean,
that's why
wait, so you're saying after he learned to speak and all that,
he didn't learn to have the dynamic of interactions.
oh, and you knew something was missing because
Yeah.
he was overcompensating perhaps
Yes.
for not having an identity, so he was telling you this is who I am all the time.
All the time.
I see.
So
he never got to the next level.
the next level, which no, he did get to the next level, which is persuading that he's right.
Oh.
So he got as far as the next level. So it's not only did he do a lot of telling, but he did a lot of advocating. So level 2 is positional.
So I know, you don't know. Or
Correct.
is it like, is there ever an exchange of I know and what do you know?
Yes, there is. There's a lot of. I mean, again, a healthy conversation.
Yeah, healthy
is
conversation.
I want to persuade you. I want to influence you to do something, whether I'm a parent or a teacher or a friend.
Right.
I'm thinking this.
Well,
will
it's
be,
not always persuading. I want you to understand an experience I had or
Yes.
something
So
like
you're,
that.
Yes, you're talking to each other about things.
Okay.
Level 1 and 2 and 3 actually can coexist at the same time, right? But I
Right.
want to clear it up so that people see the difference, because there is an evolutionary difference between 1, 2, and 3.
So if we just stayed at level 1, I would affirm this, and the conversation wouldn't go very deep,
No,
right? It would
we'd be
just-
talking about, hey, this is really great. What do you like?
and
what
my
do you
shoes
do?
and
My
your
shoes.
shoes. And level 2 would be, okay,
We are now having a very strong point of view about things.
right, and I want you to get what I'm saying.
Right. And
Okay.
I
we're
also
still having a level 2 conversation.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Right.
But if we were to take it to level 3, our
Right.
conversation, and
Right.
what you say in the book, what would we do?
So level 3 is where I'm not addicted to being right. I don't have to be right. I don't have to influence you to think the way I think. I want to get to know really everything I can about you. I want to learn and discover. And I want to understand your ideas. And where did you come up with this? For example, I'd be asking questions where I don't have answers.
Ask me a question.
Okay, so
Yes.
I love the title of your show, and it's very provocative. Where did that come from?
It came from being open to new possibilities and having people on that can influence me in my thinking. So,
And what kind of possibilities, Alan? Is it every possibility in the world? Now I'm confirming, right?
okay,
Is it
you're confirming.
But I want to know, is it any, I mean, what does the possibilities lead to? Is that,
But in this level 3, is it just you asking me? Don't I
You can ask me.
I
You
can
were
ask
just
you, but don't
curious.
I have to answer
want
what
to
you
answer, yes.
You answer what you've asked me, and then
Yeah.
I come back at you with.
something curious.
So you asked me, yes, in this show I'm opened up to any level of transformation that I think is beneficial for me and everyone watching. So, and I would say to you, like if I was going to ask a level 3 question to you, I would say, what did you learn the most about yourself when you wrote this book?
Oh my goodness, that's such a great question. And now you're asking me a question where I don't know, I don't have a knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
Right? And it's making me think deeply.
Yeah.
So my chemistry has to change for me to be willing to think deeply.
And get off like
A quick answer, having it and being
Right,
right, and then
right.
moving on to something else, right?
Right. And then we go deeper together because I feel you going deeper, and in your depth, you're also taking me to a deeper place.
That's right. I'm now going to wonder about that question. Nobody's ever asked me that question.
Okay. But you did learn something, because people write things or in order to not just validate, but to take themselves to a new place.
Do you want to know the biggest thing that I learned about
Yes,
myself?
I do.
This is a very personal thing. I don't
Okay.
think I've shared it with too many people.
Okay, well, just me and everyone watching.
And everybody watching, but you put me into a place of comfort
Okay.
about this.
Okay.
After I started to realize I was 20, that my father was who he was, and that I lived in a family without a lot of conversation, during those 10 years, I was trying to go into people's houses. I literally would run away from home and go into people's houses and watch them talk.
Oh, wow. You've been studying this a long time. Oh,
yes.
This is like a lifetime
This is a lifetime.
study.
This is a lifetime of
Conversation
study,
is
yes.
like you've devoted your life to understanding conversation.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So
that should be on the book cover.
It's
okay.
But it's someplace in there.
Okay.
But I would run away from home, and I take my sister and brother sometimes with me. They remember, and we found people down the street. And when I watched them talk to each other, I almost had tears in my eyes just watching how good I felt, them loving each other right in front of my eyes.
What were they doing to love each other? How did you know they were loving each other?
It was the way they cared for each other. It wasn't about ideas. It wasn't about persuading. It was the mother would be looking and seeing what the child wanted and constantly bringing them over to sit on their lap, and loving, warm interactions.
But your father loved you. He just didn't.
No, my father never said he did.
Well, but you know he did. I mean, maybe you didn't, but I would think that because you seem to turn out all right.
Oh, I turned out great.
No, but I would think that he just didn't know how to express the love and wasn't aware. But I would say in the telling, in the level 2, this is my guess,
Yeah.
he was trying to love you in the way that he could by telling you how he thought the world should be for you.
Yes.
I mean, that's his level
a great
of love.
now that's another insight for me. So we're in level 3, meaning that I am now getting insights from you telling interpretations of things that are part of me.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
And when we're in level 3 and when we use what I call conversational agility, which is also in the book,
Which means?
you just did a reframe for me. So reframing, refocusing, and redirecting.
Oh, because all these years, however, you thought your father never loved you.
Yeah.
And now I'm telling, my perception is
Yeah.
he loved you the best way he could.
The best way he could.
At the level he was at.
That's correct. And now,
And what does that do for you?
it releases a whole different perception inside of me about my story. And every human being, as you know, has stories.
But it changes your brain.
It changes my brain.
That shift in perspective changes your brain,
Yeah.
and then
And so if I go back, and some people dwell on the things that don't go well in their life throughout their life. They bring it
Right.
up over and over again,
My
like
father never loved me.
my
Right.
father never loved me, right? That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so now what that connects to me for a story, so I'll close the loop on me,
Yes.
is that my mother passed away when I was very young at 53 from cancer, which she had for 11 years. So we had a lot of sadness around health in our family. My father ended up with dementia, and he was in a hospital for 10 years. However, when I came to visit him, and he was married to my stepmother said, he doesn't talk now. And I said, well, I still want to go visit him. And when I was with him, he started to talk, and he couldn't stop talking.
Wow.
And I wrote it down,
Beautiful.
everything, because she didn't believe. She said, that's impossible. I said, let me show you what.
What
she
did
said,
he say?
He was remembering all the wonderful things, like you said, things that, and he grabbed my hand, and he said, I want to take a walk. And we walked outside, and he said, I love you.
Oh. That's nice.
So he did. And I think you're right. He didn't know how to communicate it in the same way.
Right, because he was.
So
It's beautiful. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Nice.
So we just had a level 3 conversation.
We did, but if it goes deeper and deeper, and this is what I think you want to get to in the book, is
Yes.
how to bring people to level 3. So even if we're in a business meeting, and maybe it wouldn't be that personal, how could we have a level 3 conversation if we're just really trying to get along and do a project together in business?
So I have a big client that I'm working on right
Okay.
now, and I don't have the notes with me of the letter I got, but it was a letter, very big company. They have 350,000 employees. This is the senior team, and I work with them over a year, helping people learn how to get to know each other without judgment, because that's a piece of the foundation. If I can build trust with you and get to know you without judgment, then I see reality in a different way.
And also the fact that you shared such an intimate story with about your father with me makes me care about you more, because there's a level of feeling that brought me into feeling.
Yes.
And when we have those feelings with each other, we want to take care of each other that way, because that's our basic human.
That's the first need that we have,
Impulse.
which is, right, to take care of each other. So the letter said
Yes.
that ever since we've been working with you,
Yes.
and the last meeting in particular, we will never go back. We are in a new place in our conversations with each other. And I said, describe the new place. And he said, the level of connectivity that we have, the level of honesty that we have, the level of bonding and support that we have for each other that is not forced, but it's coming from our hearts. We've never experienced it and didn't know that we could do that in business without people saying it was just a little bit too much.
How did you get a business to do that?
I won't give you the whole story,
Right,
but a
but
lot of
some
it
of it.
led into people. We gave them a lot of feedback about who they were, what their strengths were,
As opposed to their weaknesses.
Well, they got to see what they needed to develop. It wasn't a weakness.
Okay.
It's something they needed to develop to be more effective as a leader.
Okay.
Well, we had a lot of assessments and things
Right,
like that. But what we did is for this particular meeting, ask them to come in and share with their colleagues something they learned about themselves. That was your question. So
Yes.
I'm going back to your question. Something they learned about themselves and what they might want help with from others in order to be even more effective as a leader.
Oh.
And in a circle of people in business, that isn't done very often.
So people are looking in this business situation deeper at where they needed help, and so they transcended a level of I'm right, ego,
Correct.
and they went to the level that forces people to a level 3 in a
Yes.
sense,
Yeah.
looking at yourself and saying, okay, what can I really be helped? How can you help me?
Correct.
And so I get that.
And now they have informal connections with each other all the time and ask for help when they need it. And no one feels this is a sign of weakness. People think this is now a sign of strength. So they've reframed. A lot of times we don't bring certain parts of ourselves to work because we think we'll be looked upon as being soft or weak. And when they were sharing their who they are and what they would like to learn how to do better, they became human with each other.
And when people become human,
With each other.
they're cared for more. Like
Right.
when I saw
They
the
get the
human side
caring.
of you, it's like another level of caring.
Correct.
And so when people reveal themselves at work as human beings, it makes the workers closer, it makes the company more cohesive,
Right.
and it just brings the whole production level up.
So let's do a contrast for people who are hearing this for the first time,
Right.
and they might be saying, that's touchy-feely stuff. I don't know if that works in my workplace.
right.
It turns in the workplace, when it doesn't work, it's when our egos are getting so big, they're competing with each other,
Okay.
right? They're trying to win. They're trying to look good. They're addicted to being right. All those things that make a person get into conflict with other people explicitly or implicitly.
Right.
When people sit in a room and somebody has an idea and somebody tops them.
Right,
And then somebody...
that is what business is
The
about.
business is all about that,
Right.
right? You're popping another idea out, you're popping another idea.
I've never
right?
actually seen businesses sit down and talk about, okay, how do you feel? I mean, maybe at
Right.
Google or someplace.
Right. And so, and I'm not saying that we have to go in and all of a sudden become feeling to the point that we're pouring our heart out. That's not what this is about.
No, but tell me what it is.
What I'm learning is, and I'm learning as much by doing this, and then from people. So I'm learning even more every time we do it. Is that as I say to you, you know what? I want to have a relationship with you. We're going to be colleagues.
Okay.
And there's certain things I don't like that have happened in the past.
Certain things I've done in the past that you didn't like.
Yeah, ways that we showed up. Like,
Okay.
we had
and
conflicts.
So do you mention it or you just say, let's put that away?
I said, sir, well, you don't have, if they ask for an example, you're honest. You say, here's an example of something.
Okay.
Did you like it when that happened to us? And they say no.
Okay.
Usually people say no. That's what's so cool about this. When you're really honest about it, people, you say, yes, it wasn't fun. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's say.
When we were arguing, I'm right.
Did that feel great for you?
No, that was awful.
It really didn't.
No,
Yeah,
no.
right.
So we're not going to do that
We don't
anymore.
want to do that anymore.
Okay.
But let's figure out how we want to do it. So
Okay.
in what way can I support you? There's something when people say, how can I support you, which is very different than how can I compete with you.
Right. You
How
know
can I
Marshall
support-
Rosenberg in Nonviolent Communication?
I know
he
about
says
him, yes.
one of the basic needs of human beings is how I can contribute to another.
That's right.
We need to have that.
And when that happens, that's
Yes.
what triggers this give and take with people. That's what triggers this desire to help. That's what.
So if you were a colleague with me, I would say to you, how can I support you more in your work?
That's correct.
What do you need from me to make your job easier or
Right.
better?
Right.
Oh.
And you know what? That's such a wonderful thing because instead of saying, which a lot of people do, is I'm angry at you. You always do this. You get, I'm pissed off. Whatever those words are. That's because I'm upset with something you've done. Instead, when people talk about what they need from each other to be successful, and you put mutual success in front of our relationship, boy, all of a sudden, now I think of new things I've never thought about. Now my brain opens up in this prefrontal cortex heart connection, which is what is needed for level 3, and I start to request things, which is very bold, as opposed to complain.
So what would you request?
So you know what? I need more regular time on your calendar. Every time I've been on your calendar, you've taken it off, and somebody else has become more important, and it made me feel like I wasn't as important to you.
Oh, well, no, you are important. I'll put you right at the top of the
There
calendar.
you go. Okay. Yeah, that's
but
true.
let's say you aren't as important. Let's say, let's just say you aren't. I mean, in my work, let's
Yes.
just say, and you're not, and you think you should be.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
It's very easy. There are a couple things. First of all, you say honestly to me, you may not be the most important person in my life, but you are very important.
So I have to be honest.
You be honest.
Instead of just saying, well, you are the important, but,
Oh,
but
yeah,
if
you
you
pretend
really
it.
are.
No, when you say,
Okay.
say there's a lot of stuff going on, I'd love to have you part of my life and have more of my life.
Okay.
And have it not be about who's on first and who's on second.
Right.
But let's find the best time that's going to work for you. Now I feel I've been taken care of.
Okay.
So this is the kind of
So-
language that's part of conversational intelligence.
And conversational intelligence is really how to understand who we are as human beings.
Correct.
And how to be the most effective communicators, the most compassionate people. And the whole world can then go to a new level of who we are collectively.
That's right. We
Would you-
know that
Yes.
when we have distrust, the lower brain activates and it closes down this part of our brain that we've been talking about is the prefrontal cortex. Literally, it spray paints the brain and it closes down. However, when we have more compassion and empathy and trust and integrity in our lives, we're activating this part of our brain,
The frontal part.
the
yeah.
frontal part and the heart.
Right.
And when that happens, all of a sudden, I now create a platform with you, and every time we get together, we're building each other's capacity to be bigger, smarter, stronger, more wonderful human beings.
And we are going to do that.
You bet.
But one last thing, how do you bring this to like a global situation? I mean, because you're working with companies, individuals.
There's language in the book like we've been using level 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
There's language in the book about trust and distrust. When I graft this into a company, in other words, I give them these new terms, they understand what they look like, and they have rituals or conversational rituals about it. Every company that I've done this with has a change and a shift that to me, it's like growth is happening at a level I've never anticipated before.
So can we bring it to the United Nations and do it for
I
the
would love
world?
it. I would
Okay.
love it. Is that a deal?
It's a deal.
It's
I'll
a
help
deal.
you with that.
It's a deal.
Okay.
Thank you.
The world will have a conversational, intelligent exchange. And that will change the neural nets, the neurons, and the brain of the planet.
Of the planet, because we know that when that part of our brain is changed, then we have babies. We give those new genes to the next generation.
And then the world
The
will be-
world.
Well, I think you have a couple of more books in there to help
Sure.
bring this. Thank
I'm
you,
sure.
Judith.
Thank you, Alan. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been really nice. I've been talking to Judith Glaser. Her book, Conversational Intelligence, it is really a must-read. It's how great leaders build trust and get extraordinary results. I'm sure if you read this book, you would get extraordinary results. Thank you for watching. I'm Alan Steinfeld, Judith Glaser. What's your website?
Conversationalintelligence.com.
Thank you.